The wind howled like a wounded beast through the pines, carrying the first bitter flakes of winter's fury. Elias Thorne had carved his life from these unforgiving mountains, a solitary figure etched against the granite peaks. His cabin stood defiant on a ridge, smoke curling from its stone chimney, the only sign of warmth in a world of ice and shadow. 60 years he'd lived here, hunting, trapping, mending his own wounds with crude stitches and whiskey. No visitors, no kin, just the echo of his axe-splitting wood and the occasional growl of a bear too close to his traps. That evening, as the sun bled red behind the jagged horizon, he heard it, voices, faint and desperate, cutting through the storm. He stepped out onto the porch, rifle in hand, squinting into the swirling white. Two figures stumbled up the trail, cloaked in ragged shawls, their faces pale as ghosts. Women, he realized, one supporting the other, their breaths coming in ragged gasps. "Please," the taller one called, her voice cracking like thin ice. "Shelter. Just for the night. We're lost, abandoned." Elias lowered the rifle slightly, his grizzled beard flecked with snow. Abandoned. In these parts. The nearest town was a day's hike in good weather, a death sentence in this blizzard. He eyed them warily. Strangers were rare, and trust was rarer still. "Who sent you packing?" he growled, his voice rough from disuse. The shorter woman, her dark hair matted and frozen, lifted her head. "Our husbands, dead in the mines. The company men drove us out. No kin, no claim. We walked, days, widows." The word hung in the air like smoke. Elias felt a stir in his chest, something long buried under layers of solitude. He nodded toward the cabin. "Get inside, 'fore you freeze solid." They hurried past him, the scent of damp wool and desperation trailing. Inside, the fire crackled in the hearth, casting flickering light on walls lined with pelts and tools. The women collapsed near the flames, hands outstretched, trembling. Elias busied himself with the kettle, pouring hot water into tin mugs laced with herbs he'd foraged. "I'm Clara," the taller one said, her eyes green and sharp, like the river in spring. "This is Mira. We owe you our lives." Elias grunted, handing them the mugs. "Owe me nothing. Storm'll pass by morn. You can head down then." But the storm didn't pass. It raged for 3 days, piling snow against the door until Elias had to shovel a path just to check his snares. Clara and Mira stayed, their presence filling the cabin like unexpected guests at a forgotten feast. Clara was strong, her hands calloused from years of scrubbing and mending in the mining camps. She took to chopping wood with surprising vigor, her laughter echoing when she split a log clean through. "You handle that axe like a man," Elias remarked one afternoon, watching from the doorway. "Had to," she replied, wiping sweat from her brow. "No one else would." Mira was quieter, her brown eyes haunted by loss. She cooked what little they had, venison stew thickened with roots, infusing the air with aromas that made the cabin feel less like a tomb. She spoke little, but when she did, it was of her late husband, a dreamer who'd promised her the stars but delivered only dust and debt. As days turned to weeks, the widows mended what was broken. Clara patched the roof where leaks had rotted the beams, her fingers nimble and sure. Mira tended a small herb patch Elias had neglected, coaxing life from frozen soil. And Elias, he found himself talking more than he had in decades. Stories spilled out. Boyhood in the valleys, the fever that took his parents, the choice to flee society for the peaks. "I never had a wife," he said one night, as they sat by the fire. The words came unbidden, heavy with the weight of years. "Never wanted the trouble. Mountains don't betray you." Clara looked at him, firelight dancing in her eyes. "Mountains don't love you either." The air thickened, charged like the sky before thunder. Mira glanced between them, a soft smile playing on her lips. That night, as the wind whispered secrets through the cracks, Elias lay awake, the sound of their breathing a strange comfort. Spring thawed the trails, but the women didn't leave. Clara spoke of building a life here, away from the cruel world below. "We've nowhere else," she confessed. "And, perhaps we don't want to go." Elias felt the pull, a tether he'd never known. He taught them the mountains' ways, tracking elk, reading the clouds for storms, forging tools from scrap. Clara matched his stride on hunts, her aim true with the bow he'd whittled. Myra's gentle touch healed a gash on his arm from a slipped knife, her whispers soothing as she bandaged it. But shadows lingered. Whispers from town reached even these heights, rumors of the mining company's enforcers seeking runaway widows, debts unpaid. Elias dismissed it at first, but one dawn, hoofbeats echoed up the path. 3 men on horseback, badges glinting, rifles slung. "Hand 'em over, old man," the leader snarled. "Their company property till debts are settled." Clara and Mira hid in the loft, but Elias stood firm on the porch. "This is my land. They stay." The fight was brutal, fists and boots in the mud. Elias took a blow to the ribs, cracking bone, but he felled one with his axe handle. Gunshots rang out, a bullet grazing his shoulder. The enforcers fled, but not before vowing revenge. That night, as Mira dressed his wounds, tears streaked her face. "We brought this on you." Elias shook his head, pain etching lines deeper into his face. "You brought life." Summer bloomed, wildflowers carpeting the meadows. The 3 worked as one, expanding the cabin, planting a garden that yielded potatoes and greens. Laughter filled the air, a sound Elias had forgotten. Clara's hand brushed his more often, lingering. One evening, under a canopy of stars, she kissed him, fierce, unyielding. "I never thought I'd find home again," she murmured. Mira watched them with quiet joy, her own heart mending in the shared warmth. She confided in Elias about her dreams, of children laughing in these hills. "Perhaps we could all build that." But autumn brought warnings. Scouts from town spoke of a posse forming, the company unwilling to let widows slip away. Elias fortified the cabin, setting traps along the trails. "We'll fight," he declared. The attack came at dusk, torches flickering like demons' eyes. 5 men this time, armed and ruthless. Gunfire shattered the peace, bullets thudding into logs. Elias returned fire from the window, Clara beside him with the rifle, Mira reloading with steady hands. A scream pierced the chaos, Clara, hit in the arm, blood blooming on her sleeve. Rage fueled Elias. He charged out, knife in hand, taking down 2 before a boot to the gut sent him sprawling. Mira dragged him back inside, barricading the door. The siege lasted hours, the attackers circling, shouting threats. "Give up the women, or we burn you out." Inside, huddled together, Elias clutched Clara's hand, Myra's arm around them both. "I never had a wife," he whispered, voice breaking. "But now, I have 2 hearts." Clara smiled through pain. "And we have yours." Dawn broke, the attackers retreating for reinforcements. The 3 tended wounds, plotting escape deeper into the peaks. But as they packed, hoofbeats returned, more men, a dozen now. Elias stood at the door, rifle ready, the women flanking him. The leader rode forward, face twisted in sneer. "Last chance, mountain man." Elias raised his chin. "Come take him." Shots erupted, chaos reigning. Clara fell first, a bullet to the chest, her eyes wide in surprise. Mira cried out, firing wildly, but another round struck her down. Elias roared, charging into the fray, knife flashing, blood soaking the earth. He fought like a bear cornered, felling 3 more before pain overwhelmed him. Collapsing beside the women, his vision blurring, he reached for their hands. The mountains loomed silent, witnesses to the end of solitude. Winter returned, snow blanketing the ridge, erasing footprints and bloodstains. The cabin stood empty, wind whistling through bullet-riddled walls. Elias's body lay with Clara and Myris, frozen in eternal embrace. No one came to claim them, the company forgot, the town moved on. But in the valleys below, whispers grew, of a lonely man who found love in widow's pleas, who defied the world for a fleeting warmth. The mountains kept their secret, echoing his words in the gales, "I never had a wife." Yet in that brief season, he had everything. The story lingered, passed in taverns and around campfires, a tale of defiance and desire. Travelers avoided the ridge, claiming ghosts wandered there, 2 women and a man, laughing in the storm. Years passed, the cabin crumbling to ruin. A young trapper, seeking shelter, stumbled upon the bones, entwined as if in sleep. He buried them together under a cairn of stones, marking it with a carved cross. The mountains endured, indifferent, but the legend lived, a powerful reminder that even in isolation, hearts could entwine, break, and redefine home.